The more that I tapped into love and kindness, the better my food choices became. The more I focused on including the foods that made me feel better and that made me come alive instead of excluding all of the foods that I blamed for making me feel ugly and weak-minded, the better I felt, because once you start focusing on the positive, that starts to crowd out the negative.
Hi, Christina. How are you?
I am well. How are you doing, Nashi?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much
Good.
for joining me. You are a holistic nutritionist, TEDx speaker with an amazing TED talk that I recommend everybody listen to. It's wonderful. Sleep, Love, Poop. And you own your own practice, Thrive Nutrition. In the chapter, you discuss how love should be the guiding force behind how we eat. I've always heard people saying eat to live or live to eat, and yours is eat to love. Why is that important for us to love when we eat?
Fueling the body is about love-led nourishment. It's more about, okay, what do I want to do today? Like, who do I need to be today? And how can I align my food choices with these goals? What is my food love language? What can I do from a food perspective, that's really going to fuel my energy and help me live into the woman, the mom, the role model that I want or need to be today? And in answering that question for myself, I came up with a nutritional rubric or checklist. I figured, well, if every day I choose to fuel my body with foods that are going to help me sleep, foods that are going to help me poo, and foods that are going to show my body love and kindness, then it's more likely that I'll have the energy, the clarity, the confidence, the courage to live into the person that I want to be for myself, for my family, for my friends, for my community. So that's kind of where Sleep, Love, Poop came from. That's how that was born. And that's how I encourage everyone to reframe how they think about their nourishment practice.
When did you make that connection?
Yes. So I made that connection when I had my girls. I have two girls. They're 14 and 16 now, so quite a long time ago. I gained a lot of weight with my pregnancies. I really struggled to lose the quote unquote baby weight. It didn't come off breastfeeding. You know how they say breastfeed and it'll come off and all that kind of stuff? No, it did not come off. I really, really struggled to lose it. And I'd been thin my whole life. So to see myself overweight outside of pregnancy took a real toll on my self-esteem. I called myself ugly all the time. I avoided mirrors, hated taking pictures with my babies. If you see my pictures from that time, I'm hiding behind something, hiding behind them, hiding behind the stroller, hiding behind a chair, hiding behind my husband. And when I was ready to try to lose the weight, I was like, okay, I'm gonna quit sugar. I'm gonna quit carbs, alcohol. I'm gonna quit everything, right? I guess one day I just sort of listened to my inner voice when I went to open the pantry door. And that inner voice was like, God, you're so weak. I know you want to eat it, but don't. And come on, get yourself together. Put your big girl pants on. Don't be so weak. Don't eat it. You're already so fat. It's just going to make you uglier, fatter. You're just going to hate yourself even more. And then I realized that not only was I depriving myself of the chocolate, but I'd also deprive myself of a healthy meal. I wouldn't have a decent portion of protein, or I wouldn't add vegetables. I got scared of fruit. Fruit had sugars. I was letting my self-loathing get in the way of making healthy choices for myself. And so I was like, well, what am I doing? I'm treating myself like crap. I'm talking to myself like I hate myself. And what if instead of tapping into my self-loathing, what if I tried to tap into whatever self-love I have left in me? What if I used kindness to drive my food choices instead? And so that was the beginning of a totally different nourishment practice for me, because then I started to ask myself questions like, hey, did you get enough water today, Christina? Kind of feel like you're a little thirsty. Why don't you sit down and have a glass of water? Or if the girls were sick, I'd be like, uh, that probably means you're going to get sick too. How about having an orange today for a little bit of vitamin C after your meal? And so the more that I tapped into love and kindness, the better my food choices became. And the more I focused on including the foods that made me feel better and that made me come alive, instead of excluding all of the foods that I blamed for making me feel ugly and weak-minded,
Yep.
the better I felt, because I feel like once you start focusing on the positive, that starts to crowd out the negative.
That reminds me of something that you said in your chapter that I thought was powerful, where you said that women use food often as a restrictive tool rather than an expansive one. That kind of blew my mind in a way. I said,
Yes. Yes.
that's how I think of food. What are little steps that we can take to reframe that?
Yeah. We are so used to using food as a restrictive tool instead of one that can make us feel bigger and more full of light and more expansive. If you're going to micro feed yourself, then you're going to be small and you're going to feel small. How can you possibly take up space when all you're doing is like making yourself small? And I mean, it's not our fault. There are a lot of reasons for that, reasons rooted in misogyny and Hollywood culture and skinny being the ideal. And I'm going to be honest with you, as much work as I've tried to do to love myself, love my body, strong over skinny and all of that, there is still a part of me that wants a thigh gap. I'm not going to lie. Okay. The scientific world, I think, is also to blame. We measure food in terms of calories. And so the calorie is the unit that we've been using since the beginning of time to devise nutritional plans for people, which we then call diets. And a diet, by definition, is a restrictive tool. It's
Yep.
not an expansive tool. It's a restrictive tool. So to date, nutrition and diet, they've been synonyms. But 100 calories of chicken soup are way different than 100 calories of Wonder Bread. Chicken soup is going to help you build muscle. It's going to soothe your gut lining. It's going to improve your lung function. It's going to build your immunity. Whereas 100 calories of Wonder Bread, that's just dead food. Chicken soup is what I call live food. It brings you alive. So once we step away from the diet and the calorie, once we step away from those reductive, very restrictive ways to think about nutrition, we can actually step into a world that is much more magical and empowering and expansive. We can talk about nutrition as a way to fuel our body, which is totally different. And that's what I call love-led nourishment practice. Just keep trading up, right? You deserve the best every day.
I love that mantra. Don't give it up, trade it up. I love it. I'm starting to use that myself now. I'm not going to give it up. I'm going to trade it up.
Yeah. So what does that mean? It's proven by science that a lot of people, when they have a bad day, their cravings increase. Like if you have a really stressful day, you have worse cravings. So they come home and it's like, okay, I'm going to open up a bag of chips, right?
Yep.
And so instead of shutting that down and going to the place of, I couldn't help myself, I'm so weak-minded. Now, now I have to feel guilty about having the whole, okay. So instead of doing that, just ask yourself, okay, how can I trade up in this situation?
Yeah.
And maybe the trade up is having half a bag of chips instead of the whole bag. Or maybe you feel like you can trade up by having some roasted salted nuts. Maybe that's the trade up. The point is to keep raising the bar, because the reality is that we raise the bar in every other situation in our life. Is this the best car I can drive? Is this the best school I can send my kids to? We're constantly thinking about how we can improve our quality of life. We must bring that practice into the kitchen and into what we choose to nourish ourselves with.
Well, can I ask you? My weakness is chocolate cake or anything chocolate. How can I trade that up in a way that can still give me that satisfaction?
I know my total weakness, like my kryptonite, is chocolate, 100%. Like chocolate chip cookies, chocolate anything. The first time that I was thinking about, okay, how do I trade up my chocolate? I made a chocolate avocado mousse. It's delicious, and you would never know it's avocados. You get a soft avocado and you add cacao. You can add even some chia seeds to it if you want to add in a little bit healthy fats. And then you put in a little bit of maple syrup or honey. You have to sweeten it a little bit. Or some softened dates could work as well. So that's an idea of like how to trade up. If you want to make a chocolate cake, there are so many recipes out there that you make chocolate cake with like black beans and eggs and cacao. It tastes like chocolate cake and it's so fudgy that it's delicious. So there are plenty of ways to make your foods, your naughty food choices, more nutrient dense. It's really just a matter of seeking out these interesting little recipes to do that.
I'm going to try that. I also have a hard time with breakfast. What should I look for in choosing a good breakfast for myself?
So I'm having a little bit of a love-in with cottage cheese at the moment. I combine the cottage cheese with like some like cherry tomatoes and some chopped cucumbers. And then I put like a shed load of like everything bagel seasoning. Like it's got sesame seeds and a little bit of olive oil. Anyway, I love it. It's so delicious. I like a salty fix at breakfast, and that kind of does it. Plus, cottage cheese is super high in protein. 1 cup is 24 grams. So to me, it's a really fast, no-brainer breakfast. Basically, what you should be looking for in your breakfast is something that is fairly high in protein and high in fiber. A lot of people are talking about the importance of protein right now. The protein bit is important, but you always have to pair your protein with fiber. It's really important you do that in order to help you digest and detoxify, right? It's like sleep, love, and poop. The poop is
Yes, you're
super
right.
important. Eggs are great, but 1 egg is 6 grams of protein. I like to aim for about like 30 grams of protein. So if I'm having like an omelet, you can take your like 2 egg omelet, but you can also add some egg whites to it. Or I have like a vanilla whey protein powder that I add to my coffee sometimes to like make up the difference.
I like that you said that you need to also add the fiber, because you're right. All I'm hearing about is protein, protein, protein. And then I didn't really think of the fiber
Yeah.
portion of it. So that's why it's sleep, love, poop, right? I noticed there's no eat. The love is the eat part.
No.
And so I love that.
The love is the eat part, because you know what you're supposed to eat. You don't need to go to a nutritionist so that she can tell you, you know what, Nosheen, you're meant to eat your vegetables. That's the problem. No, you don't need that. You know, you have kids. You're telling them all the right things.
Yeah, that's true. We have to make better breakfast choices, Nasheen, and then we'll go from there. What inspired you to be a part of this book?
So this book, the title of it is Your Highest Self. And my job, or should I say my vocation, because I really feel like it is a vocation for me, it brings me to work with a lot of women who are in a state of like burnout or overwhelm. And I think that the reality is that many of us women, moms, caregivers, we are deeply overwhelmed and burnt out and struggling daily to feel alive and to feel connected and to live into what I like to call just a better version of ourselves. And how we nourish ourselves is so key and central to that quality of our aliveness, right? It is the one thing that we do 3 times a day that has a direct impact on our energy levels. And so I chose to be a part of this book because I wanted to offer a new language, like a new way of thinking about nutrition that went beyond diet and
Mm.
weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wanted to offer like something that put love of self at the core. And so that's what I aimed to do in the chapter, to provide essentially like a blueprint on how to put love at the core of your daily nourishment practice.
Yeah.
And I know that when I did that, I changed my life and I see it changing the life of my clients. So I wanted to share that with a wider audience.
It was a beautiful chapter. And in the dedication, you mentioned that your dad is your OG wellness influencer. How has he impacted your life?
Yeah, my dad is my OG wellness influencer. So my dad has had digestive issues since like forever. And these digestive issues, they really impacted his life in a super negative way. So, he'd go out to dinner and he wouldn't be able to eat the same as everyone else. They'd impact his energy levels. He'd be in pain. He'd have to take time off work. It was really bad. And through his struggles and through his conversations with doctors, he taught me a really important lesson. And that is that there's no separation between physical and mental health. Our physical and our mental health, they're the same thing. They are one, right? Like whenever my dad went to a new doctor, because he went to like first didn't help him, second like every time he went to a new doctor, he started his story with one central line, and that is, my father died when I was 13. He starts his story there. And I think my father really just has never been able to digest or metabolize or process the trauma of his father's death. And that trauma and that stress exists today. It lives in his stomach and his gut. So our emotions, our stressors, they manifest as physical symptoms. We can't really escape that. And so that's why, to me, nutrition and emotion are natural partners. They go hand in hand. The reality is that we all know intellectually what we're supposed to eat. We all know we're supposed to eat our
Mm-hmm.
vegetables. We all know that when we're trying to lower inflammation in the body, that there are certain inflammatory foods like sugar and alcohol that we're meant to avoid. The problem with nutrition is never that we don't know enough. The problem is that our emotions sometimes get stuck in our body, and our
Yeah.
emotions drive us sometimes in opposite directions of what we objectively and intellectually know we should be doing. And in the book, I talk about that link between our food choices and our emotions. And I talk about their impact on other emotions like self-confidence and courage. There's
Mm.
for sure a connection. And yeah, I guess your listeners are just going to have to read the book to find out.
So you were a banker before you became a nutritionist. How did you make that switch? Because it's such a different field.
Well, I know I was a banker for over 8 years. I lived in Hong Kong for 12 and a half years, and I had my kids there. And maternity leave in Hong Kong is 3 weeks. I was not ready to go back to work after 3 weeks. So I left work after I had kids, thinking that I would take like a few years off and get back to it after that. But that never really happened. My health took a bit of a dive. My anxiety levels went through the roof. I started developing allergies to things that I never had before, like dust mites, and I couldn't sleep at night between the sleepless nights and the anxiety that that produced and the inflammation and the allergies. I just was in no physical state to go back to work. And then that's when I decided at one point, based on my OG wellness influencer, my dad, and how seriously he took his nutrition and how he used nutrition to really heal and improve his symptoms. I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to start there too. And I went back to school to study nutrition and realized that because of my baby brain, I was having a really hard time studying for tests and exams. And so I'd bring my friends together and have these little lunch and learns. It's like, okay, today I'm going to teach you about poo and the digestive system. And today I'm going to teach you about the endocrine. Anyway, so I had all these like lunch and learns to study for my exams. And I realized this is valuable. Like this could help people. So when I graduated, I started my own practice and I never looked back.
Yep. And I'm so happy you did because I think your perspective is amazing. It's refreshing, it's different. And I think it's going to change a lot of lives. I've never thought of love in how I eat, but I can see now after reading your chapter how important it really is. So is there anything that you learned about yourself through this author journey?
I learned that my inner critic is there, fully present. You know, I love writing. I write a newsletter every week. I did that TEDx talk. Sleep, love, poop. Sleep, love, poop is something that I've been living for a very long time. And so the chapter did flow out of me fairly easily. However, the whole time was like, can I say that better? Does anyone really care? My chapter is divided into sleep, love, poop chapters. And I have a case study for each of them. The whole time I was like, anyone can do this. Like, why am I writing the nutrition chapter? No. Is like love even important? Like I should really be talking more science, right? That whole inner critic. She's so powerful, huh?
She is, but she's wrong because you look so good. But yeah, every one of us has it. And actually, it's interesting with my chat with Natasha. I asked her about the most common limiting belief that we all have. And she
Mm,
says it's that I'm not good enough.
yeah.
Everybody has that. Even if you're so
No.
accomplished like yourself.
The whole not enough thing is real.